Today, not only will we be painting, but we will be discussing sexual assault in our community. We also have 3 women who share their experience and how they navigated through it. Our ultimate goal today is to bring awareness and to be able to have dialogue surrounding sexual assault. Our 3 guest speakers are Ayanna Fard, an activist who has been featured in many magazine articles, radio shows, and visits many colleges to share her story. We also have Dr. Liza Chowdhury, an assistant professor and co-founder of Reimaging Justice, a nonprofit that focuses on advocating for a healing-centered justice system. And lastly, we have Rohisha Hicks, my mentor and founder of Visions of Belle, a nonprofit devoted to building and empowering lovely ladies to excel. This is a panel, and so all of our speakers will get a chance to speak, and after you guys will be able to ask questions. So our first speaker is Ms. Ayanna Fard.
Next thing I wanted to share with you guys was, my story. For anybody who know already, I'm just reminding you, and anybody who don't know, it's just something to know about me, so y'all know who's talking to y'all, right? Well, number one, I'm from North New Jersey. I'm 24 years old. My name is Ayanna. I don't think that matters. So what happened was, when I was 6 years old, I was molested. I was molested by my aunt's boyfriend, my great aunt. No one in my family believed me, but my mom did. So that was the fortunate part for me, but nobody believed us. It was like me and her standing alone against the family. Everybody said I was lying. To this day, like, I'm shamed for life. No one wants to talk to me because I decided to tell my truth. And this is a 6-year-old being shamed for telling their truth. The experience devastated and traumatized me in ways I find hard to explain. My family did not entertain my cry. Instead, shut me out. As I grew older, I bumped into my abuser again and decided to confront him. I owned my truth and forced him to own his. Everything in the dark comes to the light. This moment was something fulfilling for me. I needed to look my enemy in the eye and confront everything my 6-year-old self was traumatized with. I put a camera to his face, captured the moment. I nor he could never forget. As hard as it was for me to do, I knew no one would have my back like I had mine. I eliminated the idea I was getting support, for which I had little to any. I took a moment to gain control of my power that he mischievously stole from our innocence. Not knowing that that child would, one day grow. Not knowing that child would grow to fight back, talk back, and humiliate back, the way he humiliated me, with all the intentions to do so. I didn't deserve my pain, but if it was so that I could get pulled through the mud just to get up and get out and help my sisters get out, my abuse was a sentence well served. Today I can say I saved a life, helped so many, promoted growth in a nation of women who feel lost and victimized. Not anymore. You are a survivor. And I say that sincerely and genuinely because it's a topic that get brushed under the rug with our men and women. And I did this video, and first I'm like, it's on the Shade Room. That's big, it's not. Ebony Magazine, Star Ledger, Power 105. It just kept growing. I'm like, what did I do that women wouldn't do? I couldn't believe that, it was just me, but after talking to different women and hearing different stories, I see like it's really hard to find strength to confront something that taunted you and haunted you, especially when you got women who speak out and get shamed for speaking out or told that they lying. It's like, damn, why did I even tell my truth? Just for, not to help anybody because it can't even go past me. So, and I got denied so bad, it got to the point where I had to like really think of the moments and relive them in my head just to remind myself, like, was I lying or was I telling the truth? So it was hard. It was a hard thing for me to face. I feel disgusting. I want to say I got trust issues. I accepted men, but I wouldn't say for the right reasons now because I feel like it's a manipulate world now. I feel like I was manipulated, so it kind of made me grow to manipulate men. throughout time, so that's kind of how it affected me. And the last thing I want to say is I try not to just talk about the bad without trying to bring light to a situation. And I think the most important thing is how do we decide to cope with the situation, how we deal with it after.
Just to give you guys a little background about me, I am a college professor by trade, but really my passion lies in advocating for trauma-informed systems. Jason and I started a nonprofit called Reimagining Justice specifically for this. So we predominantly work with justice-involved youth. I used to be a juvenile probation officer for 10 years, and a lot of what I saw with my young people that were getting involved with the system, the root problem of what even had them get involved with the criminal justice system was the fact that many of them were victims of abuse. And instead of our system really looking at them as victims, they saw them as aggressors. So what we did, once I finished my PhD and once I partnered up with Jason, is that we wanted to begin creating this dialogue where we start looking from a system aspect of how much we're oppressing people and how much we are enforcing more trauma for young people that have already dealt with enough. So right now what we go around doing is basically training judges, lawyers, probation officers, police, anyone we can to let them know what the impact of trauma is. So like what I have said courageously is that, when you go through something, when you're stripped of this as a child, a lot of times, remember, if you learn about trauma, what it does is literally, changes the way you think. All right, so it puts your body into this fight or flight mode. So a lot of our young people that we see lash out in school, instead of us coming in and providing some kind of healing-centered systems, right, or helping them out, what we do is get the criminal justice system involved, or we suspend them, or we isolate them, or we label them, right? And what in turn this does is make them become even more aggressive, right? And instead of looking at, well, how can we talk to them from a frame of mind that this is more healing-centered and to understand this young person, we basically kind of push them out of our school system and into the criminal justice system. So a lot of times we hear these topics about the school-to-prison pipeline. What Jason and I try to bring to the forefront is that it's more than just this idea of mass incarceration, those kind of things. It's that idea of trauma. We have to be able to talk about what really happened and take the shame away from the fact that young people do get sexually abused, right? And we have to make it a safe environment no matter where they are, whether they're in school, whether they're talking with a mental health professional, whether they're talking to a police officer, for them to be able to say, yes, this is what I go through, and for that expert, that adult in their life, to be well-equipped to know how to actually deal with them now. So this is what we go around doing. Just to give you guys a little background about myself, I was also a victim of sexual trauma. My victimization happened at 8 years old. And it took a lot of strength for me too at 16 when I finally came out to my parents. My parents are from an immigrant background. I'm South Asian. A lot of my upbringing was you're going to get arranged marriage, you can't have a boyfriend. And when I started dating, sneaking around behind my parents' back, the conversation became that I was promiscuous and all these kind of things. And that, my way of rebellion was, well, your brother did this to me. And my parents automatically said, no, that doesn't happen in our culture. That was their way of dealing with it. And I still had to I still had to live with my oppressor in my household. And so ever since then I said, whatever I'm going to do with my life is going to be to make sure that young people like me who have gone through this, and I know to this day at 36 I'm still going through some of the after effects of the trauma that I dealt with. And because of that, continue to try to educate myself so that I could educate other young people on how to deal with it. Because our mental health system right now is not doing the best it can, and it's not very culturally responsive, especially to the needs of children that are immigrants, the need of children of color. It's not very responsive to their needs. A lot of times, I know that I grew up in an inner city, so sometimes the way we act out when we're angry is, we're a little aggressive, But instead of looking at that as a mental health perspective, a lot of times what they see is that, okay, this person just has a bad attitude. Oh, this person needs to get reprimanded or needs to be placed after school. So a lot of what Jason and I do now is go around the country to kind of teach people and systems that is not the appropriate response. We need to work more on the socio-emotional needs of young people, really come up with culturally responsive ways on how to tend to some of their trauma and how to create this safe space. Just also a quick thing out there, because I also teach in the prison. And what I realized is that even working with the men incarcerated currently, when we started talking about trauma, so many of them admitted to being victims of sexual abuse. And admitted to the fact that when they became sexually abused and didn't have the way to kind of deal with some of their, pain, it became kind of the norm for them to respond in the way of becoming an aggressor. If we're talking about the crime problem, we have to talk about that trauma issue, and we have to talk about healing. So to fast forward to where we are now as an organization, because I don't want to just bring out the problems. We know the problems are there. We have to create, like we're doing right here, a safe space that we can normalize this, right? So that people are shunned, people are ashamed, people are isolated, right? But now what we're gearing more towards is creating a healing center. So when, I was introduced, they talked about the healing. How do we make it more culturally responsive for our kids? So we go around to different communities, especially communities mostly impacted by violence, because there's so many layers of trauma that our kids deal with. Our kids not only deal with that personal trauma, we talk about systemic trauma, we're talking about ancestral trauma, and then we're talking about that one-on-one trauma that they've dealt with by their personal aggressor. So we go around promoting the idea of meditation, the idea of yoga, the idea of creating, having mentors in the community, having more people that look like them to help them, right? So that's kind of where we are at right now as an organization, to make sure that our young people's voice are at the center of these solutions, and we continue to advocate and create safe spaces for them. So that's my spiel, all right?
I am the founder of Visions of Bell. I'm 33. I look good, right?
Yes.
Right. So when asked to do it, I was like, me? Like, you see what you got coming up there to talk? Like, I don't know, my experience is as impactful, right? And then I had to think about, and I was like, okay, let me think about what I've been through, and the fact that, like, I think I'm healed, I'm good, right? But I think sometimes we need to realize that when we go through things, in the moment, it sucks. And then we go and we find ways to cope and things like that, but there's still some residue that's left on us. So I was actually molested by my uncle by marriage when I was like around 8 or 9 years old, and I come from a West Indian background. And I remember my parents always told me, speak, right? Just be mindful of how you say things, but never hide anything from me, right? Always tell the truth. It's better for you to tell the truth than I find out that you lied. So I'm like, okay, it happened. And I never forget, I told my mom, I told my cousin. And my cousin's like, don't forget to tell your mother. And it's like, you're like, I don't know, wait, should I tell? Should I not tell? And I kind of told, I was like, oh yeah, Uncle so-and-so, molested me. Simple, just like, like she ain't really paying attention. She doing 20 million different things. And I was like, what? And I was like, when I was over there yesterday, he molested me. And she was like, what do you mean by molested? And I was like, he was touching on me in places he shouldn't be touching on. And I never forget, my mom called my father, and it was like, y'all get dressed, and we went to my uncle's house, right? And I'm like, oh Lord, the whole family just came up for the weekend. It's about to be real. They West Indian. They're going to be like, I'm lying. This is all I had in my head, because you see little things on TV, or you hear things, and kids are supposed to be seen and not heard. So it's like, oh man, I'm in trouble now because I told. And I never forget that my parents held him accountable for what he did, right? I don't care if I don't remember, If my child said that you did this, I believe it. And I was like, whoa, I felt some type of empowerment, like they're listening to me. But then you have your family. Oh no, she grown. At 8 or 9 years old, I'm grown, right? And then like my other cousins started coming forward and saying this happened to them. And oh, when I was here last summer, this happened to me by the same person. And back then I didn't know of how powerful like it was that now my cousins are speaking up versus having the aunt saying no, it was her fault, she did it. So it's kind of like, okay, do I feel empowered? Should I be happy that I told? Should I not be? Now looking back at it, and in my walk with ministry and understanding that, because I used to go, God, why me? Why did that have to happen to me? Because now there's a ripple effect, right? Now I have issues, father issues, right? Now I have issues with men. I'm not understanding why I had to experience something so young if there's a God, right? And I had to realize that, unfortunately, that for me to go through that, it started a chain, right? A generational break took place, because now everybody's coming forward, right? Now his wife is holding him accountable. You can't drink. Because when you drink, this is what happens, right? And I had to be like, well, okay, I understand that, but that still happened to me, right? I still feel broken because you violated me. And it seems to be people that's closest to us, right? And we'll say, like, our friends are cutters, it's a friend. But when a family member, right, or somebody that's supposed to protect us, and you take that away, it's like, how do I figure out what I'm supposed to do? Who do I trust? Who do I not trust? right? So it's okay. I'm like, I'm good. You know, I know ain't nobody supposed to do nothing wrong to me, right? I started going to counseling, talking to people, talking about my experience. I'm like, I'm good. Ain't nobody ever gonna put me in a situation like that ever again, right? They end up in a relationship, right? Now I'm all booed up, loved up, all that good stuff, right? Until you pulled the knife out on me because you wanted me to have sex with you and I didn't, right? Now it's like that little girl that was 8 and 9, that voice is gone because now it's like, it's different. But you love me, don't you love me? Right? So going through all those things in the moment, it sucks, right? But being able to say, you know what? I'm better than that. Granted, it had to happen to me, but it's about to be a ripple effect. Something's about to happen that's going to change my life. And I had to realize that there were some broken things in me. I kept attracting myself to people that abused me. It's a little different, right? Because now you're my lover. You're not like somebody that's supposed to protect me and you're my uncle, right? But the cycle still consists because I'm allowing you to have control over me. Because I don't understand what control from myself looks like, right? So I had to go counseling again, right? I had to seek God. I had to start talking about it. Right? Because I'm not whole. I couldn't understand. And I had to really go like, well, why would they do that to somebody? Right? Not to excuse their behavior, but then it's like, what happened to them? Right? Because hurt people. Right? So something happened to them and nobody broke the cycle. Nobody held them accountable. So it continues to keep going on and on and on and on and on. So that leads me into starting my nonprofit where I work with young girls from 14 and up. So my goal is that things happen to us, and it's so unfortunate. However, we're not going to be victims anymore, right? We need to be a victor. And most people are like, well, you're not validating that I got hurt. No, baby, I'm validating that you got hurt. They was wrong. But what are we going to do? Are we going to allow that every time we do something or we maneuver, we remember that somebody took control? We're going to take our control back. Right? Because that's the difference between a victim and a victor. The victim is the one at the scene of the crime talking about, oh, I'm hurt. I'm hurt. The ambulance come and they say, you want me to take you to the hospital? No, I'm hurt. This happened. You ain't see how he hit me? You ain't see that what happened? Look, ask that witness over there. And they like, y'all, this happened. But a victim gonna say, I'm not okay and I'm hurt, but I'm gonna get to that hospital because I need help. Right? And that's what we have to realize, that we cannot be silenced anymore. Right? So it's not the fact of, well, why did you wait this long to say something? I said it when I felt as though I needed to say it. Right? But if we don't give the space to empower people to speak when it happens, they're always going to be silent. But that doesn't mean that we as people, right, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, that we just say, that couldn't have happened. Because we don't know. We were not there. Right? But we need to figure out what happened. We cannot allow our children to be in a place where they feel like they're victims. We can't. They're going to be our next generation. So the goal is that you have to speak up. Right? You have to go figure out your own stuff. Right? You need to figure out, okay, you know what? This happened. I need to not blame myself. It's not my fault. Right? And be able to say, like, I'm reaching out to people. I'm not fully there. I'm still trying to understand what took place and why it happened. But I'm going to be better for it. Because something is going to come out of it. Something has to come out of it. Right? For somebody to enjoy it, because if it was somebody else, they would have lost their mind. They would have gave up on life. But it happened to me, and I'm still standing today, so that means I got to do something. I got to spread the word. I got to speak. I got to embrace people that, you know what, I may not have been when that happened to you, but I understand you. I'm going to empower you to get your voice back. You're going to be healed. You're going to know that you're worthy, right? Because that sometimes we play a part like, oh, well, maybe I did something wrong, and, you know, well, why didn't that happen? And some of our siblings, well, why didn't that happen to me? I'm older, right? Why that shit? Because look at all the attention. We got to look at the root of things. So that way, when we're talking to people, we have our own children, it's not a cycle that continues to keep going.
Proud of you, Wesley. You're an angel. You're a boss. You're doing great things for beautiful people.
Oh, mine's a drive. For me and my diet elephant. Every time. My mama likes to say I love you, and I'm so proud of you. You've done an amazing job. We need to do more things like this so I can continue to come. I support it. Save our sisters. I love you. Motion and in line.